Hey, how's it going guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to be continuing the 100% walkthrough guide for Death Gambit. In the previous episode we finished up Journey's End, and today we're going to be moving on to Amulvaro's Observatory. So to access the observatory, first of all we will need to buy the Crest of Gaia from the merchant Jacko over here for 1,100 shards exactly. Once we've obtained that, we're going to come over here to the right again where Bast is sitting and continue climbing up. To the right there will be two ladders. And now with the Crest of Gaia, this will give us access to use this lift to take us to the upper parts of the Sanctuary, and that is where we're going to find the Observatory. The first of the items here we're going to find, in fact, as soon as we get to the top of the lift. If we jump off to the right, we'll find a crow plume. Walking over to the left, we'll rest at the first of the outers, as we'll probably be expected to die at least a couple of times in this place. The first enemy we're going to encounter up here is going to be a fire giant. So if we follow the same order we have here in the walkthrough, we'll have faced a few of these before, down in Gambit, for example. We will need to defeat pretty much all of the enemies we see throughout this area for multiple reasons. The main one being is we won't be able to proceed past them until we do defeat them, because there'll be these lasers blocking the way, at least until we disable the lasers. So to disable them, initially all we need to do is just attack the closest enemy to the laser, and that will get rid of them. But there is going to be a switch hidden in this level which will allow us to permanently disable all lasers, which is going to be our first priority to do as soon as possible. So once we get to this room with the golden cage, this is going to be our reference point. Notice from corpses on the ground there will be parasites that jump out of them sometimes, which are going to be very hard to see, but if you notice your HP starts dropping fast, quickly go into your inventory and find the parasite and drop it from your inventory to stop losing HP. These can be very annoying and kind of hard to spot the first time it happens. Okay, so going over to the left, these eyeball enemies we just seen there, they will indefinitely keep on spawning in. They're very easy to kill, but if you don't kill them before they cast, they will spawn in Owl Kings. Drop down here and we'll find a pretty cool aura, and we'll also notice there's a wall here that only disappears when we're facing away from it. So to go through this, it's pretty obvious. All you need to do is look away from it and backstep to go through it. In here we'll find Fink standing next to a lever. He will offer to press the lever for 1,000 shards, which is a little bit expensive considering we can just say no. Take him out and jump up there and do it ourselves. We won't need to do an item jump or anything like that. You can just jump up there with a simple slash attack. And by activating this lever, this is what I was talking about a second ago, this will disable all of the lasers. So if we really wanted to, we could just run past all of the enemies in this area now without too much problems. I'm not going to do that in this video just because there's a lot of things I want to show you. But just know that you could perfectly well do that. So once we've come up from there, we're going to continue over to the left, as there's a few more optional things we can grab over here. Take out a few Owl Kings. As you will have noticed, the Owl King is actually the first boss of the game, which we're now encountering as just random enemies throughout the levels. So here, this is where the eyeball enemies are mainly going to spawn in, and over here to the left we'll find the Gift of the Grey Wanderer. Remember this area, so we'll need to come back to it a little bit later on for one small thing. Come back to the cage room and climb up the ladder to the left hand side to access the upper floor this time, as it's the only other way we can go at the current time. Up here we'll find a few crystal enemies along with another Owl King. Take out the Owl King. And even though I go straight up this ladder, before you go up that ladder, you want to come down like we do in a second to find the first tome of Amulvaro, which is obviously going to be the boss of this area, as we probably guess by the name. So once we've obtained that, we want to continue climbing up the ladders, destroy the crystal enemies, try not to fall down like we did here. That is not part of the the walkthrough. And here we're going to find another upgrade for the Phoenix Feathers. Once we obtain that, jump across here to the right. We've got a pretty interesting room coming off next. In the upper part, we'll find multiple pretty tough enemies. We'll find Iron Golems, Owl Kings, and even some Gold Drake Knights up here. So be very careful, as this place can be a little bit scary. Once you've taken out the first Fire Golem, you notice to the left is going to be a Damage Threshold chest. We're going to call this Damage Threshold chest number 1, as there is going to be a second one in this same area that can be easily confused, but it's a completely different one. And if anything, it's made to make you believe that once you get the second one, you've actually obtained the first one. But the first one is a lot more difficult to get than the second one, so we'll be explaining all of that in a second. Don't worry too much about that. We'll show you all that. So we've noticed the Damage Threshold chest is actually spawned straight below us. This is one of the 5 spawn points that the Damage Threshold chest number 1 can spawn in. It's not always got to be in the same order, it just happened to be there, which is pretty good to show you guys what I mean. If we drop down here, we can find the energy cells, which are the item we need to carry down to Gambit, as we explained in like 2 episodes ago. Keep on dropping down, there'll be a gold chest we need to get to without using any of the phoenix feathers from the previous outer to make it unlock, and that's going to be the void plume, which is a pretty good upgrade for the phoenix feathers as well. Once we've done this, we can continue climbing back up. Head over to the right where we defeated the gold Drake Knight and climb up the ladder. Up here we'll encounter at least 2 of the Owl Kings, depending if the eye has had time to spawn in a third one or not. Sometimes there can be up to 3 Owl Kings up here, which if you didn't activate the switch to disable the lasers can actually be pretty scary, because it's such a small area to fight them in. You'll be surrounded on lasers on both sides. So take out both of the Owl Kings and then continue over here to the right. Make sure, like I said, get rid of any eyeballs you see on the way. They're pretty easy to kill. And once you get to this ladder, we want to drop down. When you're dropping down, be careful with the fire breath. And just below the second fire breath, to the right, we're going to find the second of the tomes for Amulvaro. Continue dropping down and we'll find a room with these crystal enemies. And here we're going to find damage threshold chest number 2. Like I said, this is not the same one as we encountered the previous 2 times. This one is always going to remain inside this same room. Even though it does move around, it cannot leave this little room here. Once we defeat that, it's going to give us an Immortalite Stone. And this is made to kind of take us off the track that the other one is still alive. Kick down the ladder, by the way, to the left, which will give us a shortcut back down to the lower floor of the cage room, which is going to be very necessary if we want to quickly track down the other chest, as it does recharge HP and it's going to move around pretty much all over this map. We'll be showing you the 5 spawn points the other chest can spawn in just a second, but first let's clear up a few other things we need to finish. If we continue going up, further past the Dragon Breath, continue through the door, this is going to lead to the next area. I wouldn't recommend resting at the outer unless you really have to, as this will respawn all the enemies in the previous area, and like I said, we're going to go back down there in just a second to finish up the moving chest. Here to the left, we're going to find a Leaf of Gaia, slash down the illusionary wall below the ladder, and here we're going to find the Gaian Relic number 3. If we head back down here, there's going to be a section where there's 4 different pathways we can take. Each one of these is going to be, let's call them a mini-boss, and they will lead to a semi-permanent debuff until we finish this area, so definitely leave that until last. We don't want to touch that quite yet. So now let's continue searching for this magic chest, shall we? We've seen the first 2 spawn points it can possibly be in over there to the left, where the fire giant was. The next spawn point it can possibly be at is just below the fire breath, where we encountered the second of the tomes of Amulvaro. So far we've seen 3 of the possible spawn points, right? We've seen the one where the second tome was, where it was just now. We've seen the first one where we fought the Iron Giant, and the third one where it was just below the Iron Giant pathway. The 4th spawn point is going to be all the way over here to the left, where we are going to need some sort of a long-range weapon to be able to hit it. It's unlikely to do much damage here, as even the triangle doesn't seem to reach with the Sentinel class. And there's one more possible spawn point it can be. This is the good reason why you'd want most of the ladders unlocked, to quickly be able to maneuver around the map. This is the reason we left this to last, just to make sure there's no enemies in our way. We've got all the shortcuts unlocked so we can freely travel around the area without too much hassle while looking for this chest. That's going to be a little bit of a pain. As you can see, the 5th one as well. This is the 5th spawn point. The other spot it can be up is right up the top here near the final door. And those are the 5 spawn points. It doesn't have to follow any particular order. It can go in pretty much any order it likes. Also take into account you can actually dash jump from this platform over here on top of the golden cage to save you time. And here we can see it spawned back into the second place just again, straight after it was already there a second ago. So the reward is going to be another Immortalite Stone. Whether the hassle is worth it for you or not, depending on how much damage you do or how much time you're willing to waste for one Immortalite Stone. That is the reward, and that is how it's obtained. So now we've finished up that. That wasted way too much time with this video, I'm afraid, but I did feel the need to explain it, as it's one of the kind of mysteries of this place. We can rest. We can come up here now and we can rest at the outer, and it's time to take on these 4 mini-boss debuffs. So like we said, each one we fight is going to give us a semi-permanent debuff until we finish this area. Each one is always obviously going to be the same. The one over here to the bottom right is a good one to start on. Once we defeat this enemy over here in the bottom right room, the debuff here is going to give us is so that every time we roll, it is going to drain our stamina all the way back down to 0 every single time, which could be a downer. However, luckily to Worden, it says dodge rolling makes stamina get reduced to 0. So if we air dash, it doesn't actually get affected. We can still air dash and not consume all of our stamina. Top left is going to be a fire giant or fire golem, and by defeating him it's simply going to reduce our max HP down to 70%, which is kind of bad, but it's not too bad compared to some of the other ones. So heal up, and as you notice, the max HP will only go to 70%, and these debuffs are going to last until we enter the boss room pretty much. Bottom left is going to be a Owl King. Be careful not to get poisoned. Heal up before you take down the Owl King, make sure you're at the maximum HP you can be at, because after you defeat the Owl King, the debuff it's going to give you, as you can see on the top right, it lists all the debuffs we get. That each time we heal, it's going to use 2 Phoenix Feathers instead of just the 1, which can be pretty painful, especially if you've got many Phoenix Feathers augmented into, like, strength. So the final one we're going to do up here is the top right. The rest of them, the order doesn't really matter to me too much, but I would definitely recommend leaving this top right one until last, as it's the most devastating debuff. It slowly lose HP when no abilities are on cooldown. So if you don't have any abilities on cooldown, you're always losing HP at a pretty fast rate. So be careful with that, make sure you heal before trying to climb up the ladder. Once we have all 4 of these debuffs active, it will allow us to open up this doorway here to the left. This is going to be the way into the boss room, so once we enter here, we'll lose the debuffs and the door will stay open. But before we continue any further, there's actually one more hidden item we can grab. So we want to jump down here to the left, air dash and land on top of this other column, and then do the same again, air dash, and we're going to land on top of the Light of the Grey Wanderer, which is a pretty well hidden item. You could just grab this by item jumping from the Owl King room, but that's the legit way of getting it. So I'd recommend picking that up before. I would recommend picking that up before we rest at the outer, simply because if we rest at the outer, it will spawn in the mini bosses again. So once we pick that up, rest up here, prepare for the boss, level up, do what you've got to do. And there is going to be one more item we need to pick up before we take on the boss, but don't worry, this one's very, very simple. It's simply behind the boss, inside the boss room. If we go all the way to the end of this dark room in the observatory, walk straight past Amulvaro for now, we'll find one final Immortalite Stone. So now, the only thing that remains in this level is the boss fight itself versus Amulvaro. This is definitely one of my favorite, as well as one of the most difficult boss fights in the game. The Galaxy Mage. He has quite a few different attacks, and he is very stamina reliant. Even on highest levels, chances are you won't have enough stamina to outdodge some of his phase 2 attacks, as they continue on for a very long time. So as you notice throughout the video, I'll leave the full boss fight in the background, though it's not a perfect sample. I do try my best to prove certain points, like it's very easy to stagger him out of most of his attacks. It's a lot easier than, as you can see there, it's a lot easier to stagger him by using the abilities and even the swarm. It'll stop most of his moves, instead of actually trying to dodge them. For this sort of cross laser, just stick to the right as much as you can, just run towards the right and you'll automatically avoid 2 of the lasers, and the other one's going to be very easy to dodge through. The only attack you can't stun him out of, as far as I'm aware of, is this one here, where he sort of does the expansion wave before spawning the blue balls. You can't stagger him out of that one, so just get away from him as quick as possible. Pretty much everything else he can be staggered out of. We make another good example of it here. We only just managed to hit him, but we use the triangle ability. We save it not to do damage, but when it's going to go for something it looks like we don't have enough stamina to avoid, we'll just pop the triangle ability, depending on what class you're using. I don't know. I usually use the Sentinel, and that will stop the attack in its tracks. Again, same thing, even on stage 2, this attack is relatively easy to dodge. In fact, I don't think we need to dodge a single time by standing here to the right some of the times, which is pretty useful. And that's most of it here. You can see we're just repeating the same thing. Spam away with the swarm. Even if we take a hit, we realize we're probably going to take even more hits if we try to dodge again, so we just try to retaliate by attacking back with the swarm. And I think I'm just pretty much repeating myself over and over again now. Just take advantage of those staggers as much as you possibly can, guys, and you shouldn't have too much trouble on this boss fight.
Is this possible? Your crippled force, the more you truly be gone then, Death.
So that does put an end to this episode of 100% walkthrough guides of Death's Gambit. This has been Amulvaro's Observatory. I hope you did find this video helpful, guys. If you did, don't forget the thumbs up button, stay subscribed for more content coming very soon, and we will see you next time.